The person you're losing sleep over right now, the one whose name still tightens your chest, they're not thinking about you. Not right now. Probably not yesterday either. And I know hearing that feels like swallowing glass, but I'd rather cut you with the truth than let you bleed slowly from a lie. Because here's what's really happening. You're scrolling through their Instagram at 1 a.m. You're rereading old conversations, looking for the exact moment it all went wrong. You've drafted 7 texts you'll never send, or worse, you already sent one. And right now, every fiber of your being is screaming one question: how do I make them miss me? Wrong question, completely dangerously wrong. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why that question is the very thing keeping you trapped, and what you should be asking instead. Something so counterintuitive, so brutally effective, that most people refuse to do it. Not because it's complicated, because it requires the one thing nobody wants to give after heartbreak. My name is Olivia, welcome to Love and Logic, and today we are burning the entire post-breakup playbook to the ground. Stay with me. Let's start with the lie. The beautiful, seductive, absolutely destructive lie that the internet has sold you. It goes something like this. If you just disappear, glow up, look irresistible, and show them what they're missing, they'll come crawling back. Sounds logical, right? Go silent, hit the gym, get a fresh haircut, post strategically. Let mutual friends casually drop hints about how incredible your life is now. Maybe even parade a new person around for good measure. The entire internet has turned post-breakup recovery into a military operation, and millions of heartbroken people are executing this playbook right now, convinced they're winning. But nobody wants to admit this. That playbook has a catastrophic success rate. Not because the tactics are entirely wrong, but because the motivation behind them is rotten. Think about it. You're not actually improving yourself. You're performing. Every gym session, every outfit choice, every casual appearance at places you know they frequent, it's all choreographed for an audience of one, the person who left you. And you know what that makes you? A puppet whose strings are still being pulled by someone who already walked off the stage. Here's the harsh truth. You cannot manipulate someone into genuine longing. You can trigger curiosity, you can provoke jealousy, you can manufacture moments of doubt, but none of those things, not a single one, is the same as being genuinely missed. And confusing those things is exactly where everything falls apart. Let me draw a line most people have never considered. There is a massive difference between someone noticing your absence and someone aching for your presence. Most post-breakup strategy targets the first one. Almost nothing addresses the second. When you vanish suddenly, yes, they notice. That's basic pattern disruption. A person who was in their daily routine is suddenly gone. Their brain registers that gap the same way it registers a missing piece of furniture. It's awareness. It's not emotion. When you glow up and appear transformed, yes, they register it. But what are they actually feeling? Often it's not desire. It's competitive anxiety. It's the unsettling thought of, wait, am I being replaced? Did I miscalculate? That's ego activation, not love. When you show up with someone new, yes, it provokes a reaction. But that reaction is usually threat assessment, not romantic longing. Their attachment system fires because a resource they considered theirs is now potentially unavailable. That's scarcity bias. It's the same psychology that makes people want limited edition sneakers. It has nothing to do with the actual sneaker, or in this case, with you. So if you execute the entire playbook perfectly, you know what you get? A person who is activated, unsettled, maybe even temporarily obsessed. but not a person who genuinely misses the experience of being with you. And that distinction is where most people get it absolutely catastrophically wrong. Before we go any further, we need to talk about you, not your ex, you. Because there's something happening inside your nervous system right now that you're mistaking for love. And if you don't understand it, you'll keep making decisions that feel right and are absolutely devastating. When a relationship ends, especially when you didn't want it to, your brain enters a state that neuroscientists have compared to substance withdrawal. Research from multiple universities has demonstrated that romantic rejection activates the same neural pathways as physical pain and addictive craving. The insular cortex and the anterior cingulate, regions associated with suffering and obsessive focus, light up like a switchboard. You're not heartbroken in the poetic sense. You're chemically destabilized. And here's where it gets dangerous. In that destabilized state, your brain doesn't want healing. It wants the substance back. It wants the dopamine hit of a return text message, the oxytocin flood of physical closeness, the serotonin stability of knowing someone is yours. So every strategy you pursue, the no-contact chess game, the jealousy ploy, the glow-up performance, it's not rational planning. It's an addict engineering their next fix. Nobody wants to hear that comparison, but it's clinically accurate. On top of the neural chemistry, there are two psychological forces making everything worse. Loss aversion. Behavioral economists have demonstrated that humans experience losses approximately twice as intensely as equivalent gains. Losing a partner doesn't register as a relationship ended, it registers as something being taken, and your system mobilizes to recover it, not necessarily because that relationship was healthy or fulfilling, but because your brain is wired to resist loss at almost any cost. Ask yourself honestly, were you this passionate about the relationship while you were in it? Or did it suddenly become priceless only after it was gone? Identity disruption. When you're in a relationship, part of your identity fuses with the other person. You become someone's partner. That role gives you psychological structure, a sense of where you belong, who you are, what your future looks like. When they leave, they don't just take their presence, they take a piece of your self-concept. And the frantic need to get them back is often, not always, but often, an unconscious attempt to recover your own identity rather than the actual human being. This is where most people get it wrong. They think they're fighting for love. They're fighting for psychological stability, and those are not the same war.
Now, let me rebuild this properly, because there are things that work, but they work for completely different reasons than what the internet tells you. Let's start with space, disconnection, the so-called no-contact rule. Everyone frames this as a strategy. Go silent for 30 days and they'll wonder where you went. That framing is poison because it turns healing into a countdown clock, and the entire time you're supposedly moving on, you're actually staring at a calendar, calculating when you're allowed to reach back out. That's not distance, that's delayed pursuit. Here's what distance actually does and why it matters. When two people separate, the emotional atmosphere is contaminated. Everything is filtered through hurt, resentment, defensiveness, guilt. Any interaction in that state, no matter how carefully worded, gets processed through a lens of pain. Your just checking in text doesn't land as warmth, it lands as pressure. Your I've been thinking message doesn't feel vulnerable, it feels like obligation. Distance isn't about making them miss you. It's about allowing the emotional contamination to dissipate so that if there ever is a future interaction, it has a chance of being clean, unfiltered by active wounds. And more importantly, distance is for you. Your nervous system needs time to come down from crisis mode. You cannot assess a relationship clearly while your cortisol is elevated and your attachment system is screaming. It's like trying to evaluate a house while it's on fire. Get out first, let the flames die, then look at the blueprint and decide if the structure was ever worth saving.
The second piece everyone gets partially right, but fundamentally wrong: self-improvement. Yes, working on yourself after a breakup is powerful, but the why behind it determines whether it heals you or hollows you out. If every push-up is powered by the fantasy of their jaw dropping when they see you, that's not growth. That's audition prep. You're not becoming a better person. You're building a better advertisement for someone who'll he canceled the subscription. And here's what happens when performance-driven improvement succeeds. Let's say they do come back. They see the new physique, the new wardrobe, the new confidence. They're intrigued. You reconnect, things feel electric for about 6 weeks. And then what? The gym motivation fades because the audience is secured. The wardrobe stops being strategic because the campaign is over. The real you, the one underneath all the costume changes, resurfaces. And you end up right back where you started, except now with proof that you can't sustain the version of yourself it took to win them back. That's more damaging than the original breakup. Real transformation happens when you stop asking, what would make them want me? And start asking, what do I need to become for my own integrity? Where did you abandon yourself in that relationship? Where did you shrink to keep peace? What parts of your life did you neglect because you made one person your entire ecosystem? Those are the questions that produce lasting change, the kind that doesn't evaporate the moment you feel emotionally secure again. This is the one that's going to make people furious in the comments, and I don't care. It needs to be said. Using another person as a prop to provoke your ex's jealousy is one of the most emotionally corrosive things you can do after a breakup. To yourself, to the prop, and ironically, to any chance of genuine reconciliation. Let's break down what actually happens psychologically when your ex sees you with someone new. First, if they're the one who ended things and they've already processed the relationship emotionally, which remember, often happens long before the actual breakup conversation, seeing you with someone else doesn't trigger longing. It triggers validation. It confirms their decision. It says, see, they've moved on. I was right to end it. That's the opposite of what you wanted. Second, if it does trigger jealousy, what exactly have you won? A person who's now approaching you from a place of competitive anxiety rather than genuine desire. A person whose motivation for re-engaging isn't, I missed the way we connected, but I can't stand the thought of someone else having what was mine. That's possessiveness. That's ego. And relationships rebuilt on that foundation don't last. They detonate. Third, and this is the part that keeps me up at night as a counselor, the person you used, the real, living, breathing human being you positioned as a pawn in your emotional chess game. They have their own heart, their own hopes, their own vulnerabilities, and you recruited them into a role they didn't audition for, where their only purpose is to generate a reaction in someone else. That's not strategy. That's collateral damage wearing a date night outfit. Let me address something that's become standard advice, and it genuinely concerns me. The idea that you should coordinate with mutual friends to strategically present your new life to your ex, curated photos, calculated updates, managed impressions, this reduces your support system to a PR department. Your friends are supposed to be your refuge after a breakup, the people you can be honest with, the people who see you crying at 11 at night and don't judge you. The people who remind you of who you were before this relationship consumed your identity. The moment you turn them into instruments of impression management, you've corrupted the one space that was supposed to be safe. You've turned authenticity into performance. And worse, you've put them in an impossible position, especially if they're friends with both of you. And let me tell you something else nobody mentions. If your ex finds out, and they usually do, that your miraculous transformation was a coordinated campaign, whatever residual respect they had for you evaporates instantly. Because now you're not just someone who's struggling after a breakup. You're someone who orchestrated a deception. And that's a fundamentally different level of distrust. This is the last hard truth, and it's the one that exposes everything.
The advice to date someone better, someone your ex will perceive as an upgrade, reveals the entire rotten foundation of this approach. Because what you're really saying is, I'm going to use another human being's perceived value to diminish my ex's self-worth. Read that again slowly. You're not dating this new person because you're genuinely interested in them. You're dating them because of how they'll make your ex feel. The new person is a weapon. Their attractiveness, their status, their qualities, none of it matters to you intrinsically. It only matters relative to your ex's insecurities. That's not moving on. That's emotional warfare, using an innocent bystander as ammunition. And here's the part that should stop you cold, even if it works. Even if your ex sees you with this upgrade and feels devastated, what have you actually accomplished? You've hurt someone you claim to love. You've used someone who trusts you. And you've proven to yourself that your self-worth only exists in relation to someone else's pain. That's not power. That's the most sophisticated form of powerlessness there is.
So what works? What actually creates the conditions, not the guarantee, but the conditions for genuine reconnection? Or, more importantly, for genuine peace, regardless of the outcome? 3 things, and none of them are glamorous. 1. They let the grief be grief. They don't rush to convert pain into a project. They sit with the loss. They journal. They go to therapy, not to fix themselves to win someone back, but to understand their own patterns. They cry when they need to cry. They don't perform recovery. They actually recover. 2. They take an honest inventory, not a self-punishing one, a clear-eyed one. Where was I emotionally lazy? Where did I stop showing up? Where did I prioritize my comfort over their needs? Where did they do the same to me? Was this relationship actually healthy, or was it just familiar? These questions are unglamorous, uncomfortable, and utterly necessary. 3. And this is the paradox that changes everything. They arrive at genuine acceptance that it might be over. Not as reverse psychology, not as a tactic. They genuinely build a life they're proud of, a life that doesn't have a vacancy sign hanging on it. They become whole without that person. And here's the twist. That wholeness is the single most attractive force in human psychology. Not the gym body, not the jealousy game, not the strategic social media presence. A person who is genuinely, deeply at peace with themselves, who doesn't need you, but would choose you. That energy is unmistakable. It doesn't need to be performed. It radiates. Your ex might feel it. A stranger might feel it. But the point is, you feel it, and that matters more than anyone else's reaction.
So, here's my challenge to you, and I'm not softening it. Before you execute a single strategy to make your ex miss you, answer these questions with brutal honesty. Were you happy in that relationship? Consistently happy? Or are you romanticizing it because loss distorts memory? Are you trying to get this person back? Or are you trying to get the feeling of being chosen back? If they returned tomorrow, unchanged, same patterns, same issues, would you genuinely want that? Or would you be signing up for a second tour of the same war? And the hardest question of all, one that separates the people who grow from the people who repeat, are you willing to let them go completely if that's what genuine love requires? Because sometimes, and I've seen this hundreds of times in my practice, the most loving thing you can ever do for someone is to stop trying to get them back, to honor their decision, to trust that they know what they need, even when it isn't you. That's not weakness. That's the most courageous act of love most people will never be capable of.
Now, I know this video wasn't what you expected. You came here for a checklist. You got a mirror instead. And I know some of you are sitting with that mirror right now feeling deeply uncomfortable. Good. Discomfort is where transformation begins. Comfort is where patterns go to survive.
So tell me in the comments, and I want raw honesty. Do you want your ex back because you love them, or because you can't tolerate the feeling of being unchosen? Take your time with that answer. It might be the most important thing you've ever been honest about. If this video challenged you, even if you wanted to argue with every word, that means it did its job. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, share this with someone who needs to hear it, even if they'll be angry at you for sending it. Because on this channel, we don't hand out comfortable lies. We deal in love and logic. I'm Olivia. I'll see you in the next one.